Just had a debate with a coworker on if shemale is a slur or not, and he kept running in circles saying nope, it's not. How could I have engaged him better?
How could I possibly know the answer to that from where I'm sitting? I don't know how... I can't give you tips. I wasn't there. It's also shouldn't femboy be a slur since it uses the same linguistics as shemale? Nah. Femboy describes the gender presentation, the deliberate gender presentation of, well, a feminine guy. Shemale, not so much. Anyway, who the f says shemale anymore anyway? That's such an antiquated porn term. I genuinely don't think I've heard anyone use that term non-referentially in like 8 years. All the main porn sites say trans in the tags as opposed to the video titles? I don't know what you mean. Oh, you mean they don't, like, the way that porn sites used to say, like, shemale, tranny, da-da-da, but now they just say, like, trans? I guess it's something. They transitioned the labels tags, I see what you did there, to trans a few years ago. Well, that's better than nothing, I guess. They usually say T-girl. I don't know if T-girl is a slur or not, but it's always kind of felt like a slur to me. Yeah, calling a real-life trans girl a T-girl, it sounds to me like the Western version of someone saying like, oh dude, an IRL futa. You know, more cringe, but that's just my association. Someone ever says that, it'd be, dude, IRL futa. Actually, if you really want to see something interesting, as somebody who follows a lot of porn artists, you know, as I respect the craft and nothing else, what's really interesting is that over the past, I'd say 5 years, there's been this big, well, funnily enough, a transition, where before, okay, women with penises have been a pretty frequent feature in hentai for a long time. That's not new. But there's been a move over from girls with penises who I would say are part of the futa genre to girls with penises who are clearly trans, you know? Because, like, in the futa thing, usually the futa chicks are, like, stacked with huge tits, and they're not trans women, they're just women who happen to have huge dicks. Like, that's kind of how they're presented, you know? Whereas over the past couple of years, I feel like there's been more fucking hentai of girls with dicks who are narrativized or presented or depicted in ways that make it look like they're trans. But then the hentai sites call that shemale. Well, I'm not advocating for the perceived progressivism of the hentai sites or anything. I'm only saying that the archetype has changed a bit. It relates back to the essentialism. To a lot of, like, people who fetishize women with penises but are transphobic, you know? To a lot of them, like, they want a woman to have a penis, but they don't want it to be a trans woman, because they think that a trans woman has, like, a fundamentally male soul, you know? So, in their construction, a woman who's just sort of magically given a penis as, like, a futa trope is a woman, whereas a trans chick isn't. And that kind of, I think that explains, like, a bit of the difference, you know? Does anyone understand what we don't have the fucking... I hate this area so much. You called futas women who just happen to have penises, but is that not exactly what trans women are? Yeah, like, futas are, like, cis women with penises.
Vaush bad.
Like, the futa women are narrativized as, like, busty, hypersexual cis women who happen to have penises. I think it's very, very important in the mind of a lot of people who like futa but don't like trans women, you know, or whatever they say. It's the idea that the futa woman or whatever was born the way they are. Like, no transitioning has taken place. They are born the way they are. Does that make sense? Conversations like this are why people call you a chaser. I'm just talking about transphobia and depictions of women with penises. This isn't even a fetishy thing.
This sounds like Ebola spiritual racism type stuff.
This is literally a thing, and people in chat will agree. Chat, if there are any people any degens who like hentai, you know I'm right, right?
Futa? What's futa? You mean futtin' these nuts in you mouth?
Thank you. Like, I guess the only way you can say it is, like, even if in a porn site, it's all under like a she-male tag, which is disgusting and transphobic. I'm not denying that, you know. But if you look at any stuff that goes back like 2015 and earlier, or even 2018 and earlier, honestly, you know, you're just like, all the futa women are going to be like women with triple X tits with like giant 2-foot-long dicks or whatever, just like some massive archetype of hypersexuality, essentially. And none of them have transitioned. Like, there's no transition, that's just what they are, or magic is involved. But nothing, no medical transition. But if you look at more recent stuff, you'll see women with penises that are depicted as trans. Either the fact that they are trans will be mentioned narratively, or
every
hold on.
time you talk about what you like in sci-fi politics.
Thanks! I'll watch The Expanse!
You don't even realize you are basically describing The Expanse.
Thank you! So anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, whereas in like more modern hentai doujins, not all of them of course, but at least some of them, you'll have characters that are explicitly mentioned to be trans, or you'll have like, you know, obviously this is a bit of a stereotype, but like tall, lanky, nervous, small breast, small dick, you know? Huge difference in portrayal from women with penises, how they were portrayed in hentai, like up until just a couple of years ago. I think there's been a pretty huge difference. Does anyone... well, people in chat who know. It's not perfect, but it's better. Well, I think it's important, you know, obviously we're talking about hentai here, which is for degenerates, but, you know, I think it's important for trans or any group of people to be fairly represented in pornography, just because it helps people feel beautiful to see themselves, you know, like sexualized in a non-exploitative sense. And it's pretty easy to do that. Obviously, there's plenty of exploitative pornography out there, but there's also non-exploitative pornography. So there's a difference between herm and futa. Well, it's a blanket term. Futa just means woman with penis. Herm means that they have a penis and a vagina, which would be a subset of futa. We just need to get to the fog door, and we can literally save scum from there. How do you know about all that? I think a cursory familiarity with hentai will give you all the information you need on this particular subject. You can't look at hentai doujins just on a website or whatever, because, like, 98% of hentai is pedophilia. Probably more like 30%, but that's so much, you know? So instead I just follow a bunch of, like, porn artists on Twitter or whatever. Like, the good ones, you know?
I'm 4 hours late and I walk in with y'all talking about futa hentai. Vaush bad indeed.
Thoughts on Ugly Bastard? Disgusting. I hate that trope. Also, it's misogynistic. There's a lot of really good drawn pornography out there. My best friend in high school through early college, he draws, I think it's they now. We don't talk anymore, but they drew and still draw a lot of porn. Good stuff, you know, all very avant-garde, you know, we're talking like 8-foot-tall monster fox yokai women with like 2-foot-long dicks, fucking, you know, cis guys who are reincarnation, you know, whatever. Godspeed. I respect it. But anyway, I always wanted to draw porn myself. It's just really hard, so never really did it. Only ever tried a couple times. But, as a product of that, I have a lot of respect for good, drawn erotica, you know. Just anything, any good drawn porn. If it's good, you know. And there's a lot that you can fuck up, too. You know, there's a big difference. Big difference in quality. So I'm done, Vaush. I'm literally a futanara. It's just the Japanese word for intersex. That being said, yeah, people who fetishize the transphobic stuff. But what did I say? I'm just talking about how these tropes are used in pornography. I don't speak Japanese, but... yeah, obviously there's a ton of transphobia in the depiction of women with penises in art. You can believe it. But anyway, yeah. There are plenty of good artists out there that do a good job. I don't get where the audience is for Ugly Bastard. Insecure men. Ugly Bastard porn is like 2% for women who fetishize the idea of being degraded by fucking a guy who they think is ugly. And 98% men who fetishize the idea of women being degraded by fucking a guy who they think is ugly. Generally insecure men who like the idea of punishing picky women women who they feel are too discerning in their sexual tastes. They want to, they get off on the idea of those women being subjected to a lower set of standards, consensually or not. And, you know, definitely varies. The fuck? I'm right. You can be mad at them, not me. What is ugly bastard? It's a porn trope when a chick's fucking a guy, but the guy's like ugly and fat and smelly. Like the idea is that he's unappealing or unpleasant. So like race-based cucking? I definitely think the ugly bastard trope is related to like interracial cuckolding in terms of like the motivations behind why people get into it. I think it's revolting. I have never in my life has a single milliliter of blood flowed to my penis as the product of a ugly bastard. I think there's validity finding disgust during sex to be a turn on. Yeah, sure. I just think I think that's fine. Well, I mean, I think it's disgusting, obviously. But the ugly bastard thing is tied to a lot of, like, what you call it, problematic tropes. It's like interracial, you know? There's nothing wrong with interracial sex. I've been known to partake. But interracial pornography, whew! A lot of wacky stuff in there. We do a little bit of kink shaming. I love kink shaming.
Another one I've heard about is NTR. What is that? I've heard a lot of people dislike it.
Cucking. Just means cucking.